Hello everybody and welcome to Wesley's Plant World with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I am sitting out in the area of my garden here at Crystal Cottage called the Courtyard Garden, and today I have a houseplant video for you because the plants that I'm going to be talking about today are only houseplants here in Sweden, whereas I know that they are outdoor plants in many other areas of the world. But the plant I want to talk about today is the beautiful Crassula Ovata. This is one of my absolutely favorite houseplants here in Sweden. And this is my big mother plant next to me here. She is enormous and I have pruned back this plant many times, and you can see some of those cuttings that I have taken down in front of me here. Now, 2 years ago, I did a whole video about this plant and how I needed to prune the whole thing back to maintain the shape so that it didn't get out of hand and start getting leggy and snapping and so forth. And this is the result of that. But since I did that video, which you need to go back and see if you haven't seen before now, I have pruned back a little bit on this plant last year because it started getting longer pieces sticking out here and there on it again, and I wanted to keep this round ball shape. I want this plant to keep this look that looks kind of like a bonsai. And well, these in front of me are some of the cuttings that I took from this plant last year, and the cuttings that I took 2 years ago I have either growing underneath other plants or they've gone on to new homes. So this is the second generation since I made that last video, so make sure you go back and see that video. But before we get into this, I just want to show you some of these cuttings closer up so you can see just how fabulous they do in just one whole year's cycle of growing out roots and becoming new plants in their own rights. So look here, look at this lovely little beauty in front of me, and if I should bring it closer to the camera, you can see how well this lovely little plant is doing. Lots of leaves, lots of bushing out. So this plant has really produced me some lovely little cuttings. Just another one for you to have a closer look at. This is just to show you how easy it is to take cuttings from a mother Crassula Ovata. Now I do have a couple of plants here that aren't cuttings from my mother plant, but they were a plant that I have broken up and split in their own right. This plant next to me here now is Crassula Ovata Gollum, and it was a plant that was growing up and it was starting to fail because these Crassula Ovata Gollum seem to need a lot more water than the original Crassula Ovata in my home circumstances, and I don't know why. So I really have to water this one a lot, and it's plumped out and it's done really well, but its branches were getting thin and snapping off. So I pruned them all back and I put them all together in the same pot, and this is the result of that. Every single part that I pruned back and put together have grown out and have produced me a lovely whole example of this Crassula Ovata Gollum. And I do actually have myself a bigger example of this in my apartment. It is very big, nearly as big as my Crassula Ovata mother plant. I also have another plant I want to show you that isn't a cutting from my mother plant, but again, another variety of this beautiful plant. This here is Crassula Ovata Sunburst, and it has a slightly more yellow hue to it if it's in the sun and a red margin around the edge of the leaves. And well, I think it's a bit hard for you to appreciate the difference here. There is a slight difference. It is a little bit more yellow. And I have this growing in my bathroom where it's shady and it gets the sun from the western window in the late afternoon, so it's not coloured up that much yellow and so forth, but there is a slight difference anyway. So it's nice to have different varieties of Crassula Ovata plants. So just to give you some more perspective of my mother plant here and how big she is, I can't get my arms around this plant, and this plant is absolutely huge. It's a huge ball, it's beautiful, and I've had this plant at least 4 years now, I'm sure, and it's doing so well for me. It lives in my bathroom in the western facing window and it absolutely loves that. All last season I actually put this out in my garden, and you can actually see that in a video where I put some of the cuttings underneath my Monstera deliciosa. I left this plant outside, but this year I've decided I want to leave it indoors in my bathroom because I love it so much. Nothing really happened to it last year. It worked out, but it doesn't seem to need it. I mean, it carries on growing out fine like this as it is, so I'm just going to leave it in my bathroom and enjoy it indoors. But there is one thing I want to do on my mother plant today, and that is I have this branch down here on the side that is hanging out so much to the side that I'm going to prune that off and make that into a plant of its own right as well. And this time I'm going to try and make it look like a miniature palm tree. So I'm going to cut it right down at the bottom, stick it in my pot that I have over there on the chair with some soil that I've already prepared, and it's just a gardening soil with lecker balls in it, with a little tiny bit of bark, and it also has fine sand mixed together, and it's in a terracotta pot so that I know the soil can dry out between waterings and won't bog down my plant at all. And you will notice all of my young plants down here are in terracotta pots, which is quite important for this plant. It likes to be thoroughly watered through when it's watering time and then allowed to dry out and then water through again. So I'm basically just going to get on with this because my mother plant doesn't need a trim this year on the rest of the plant. I've decided she's quite compact, she's quite beautiful. It's just this one stem that I need to get out. So I've got my secateurs here right in front of me, and I'm just going to prune that off straight away. So when I do this, I try and get it as far down into the pot as possible, because the thing is with these is that, see, it was very easy to chop off. The thing with these plants is, if you leave too much of a stump on the bottom, then that stump will keep trying to grow out new leaves and new branches. So I have, the last couple of years since I pruned back this plant and took some of these larger stems from the side that were leaning out off, I've been going in and having to snip off all the young growth from the bottom every single year. And it keeps trying to produce them, and it's been a couple of years now and it keeps doing it. So that will be one thing that's going to happen, but just keep snipping those parts off so that the plant doesn't keep wasting its energy producing new branches down at the bottom where you don't want them. So let's have a look at this piece that I've just taken off now before I put it in its pot. And this piece, look at this. This is a good 40 centimeters tall, and it really is going to look like a palm tree in its pot, all alone like this, with these branches growing out. And the thing that I'll need to do is snip out the ends to make sure it doesn't start extending, getting too heavy for itself and start hanging or snapping off. I want to keep the shape, so I will take off all of the ends. So you can see here, there's one little end there, there's two little leaves there, and there's two there. Take those out. And this little top piece here, take all of that out. Well, there's double top on that one, so I'll take that all out. Just use the ends of your nails, you can get that off. Any leaves that are dying, pull those off, and your plant is ready to go. Look at this. Looks fabulous. So what you would do normally, if you're worried, is you can leave this to callus over for a week or even 2. It can lay on the side for weeks. As long as it calluses over, the plant has enough moisture in the stem and the leaves to keep it going. But my experience has been that this plant does very well also just being placed straight in the soil in its pot and left like that, as long as you do not water it for the first 2 or 3 weeks. Basically, you should let the plant tell you when it needs watering. So it will callus over in the soil if it's just slightly moist, but not too much more than that. Then in a terracotta pot, it's all going to dry out very quickly anyway. The plant will callus over and it will start producing roots all along its stem here. All the stem that's under the soil will produce roots, and then the plant is starting to establish itself. When the plants start to slightly wrinkle, which is going to be around the 2-3 weeks mark, maybe longer, then you can give the plant a water through for the first time, if you're going to do it this way without callusing it over. But even if you're going to put it in the pot after it's callused over, you still shouldn't water it for a week or 2 anyway. So you might as well just put it in the pot. If you have it in a place where there's enough light getting to the plant to keep it healthy and surviving on top, it will produce roots quite quickly. So let me just get this plant in its pot now so you can see my miniature palm style Crassula Ovata. So there's nothing hard about doing this. Basically, make yourself a hole in the middle of the pot. You can use a stick, you can use your finger or whatever you have available, and stick your plant in. There we go, my plant is in, and then compact the soil around to keep it up. Now I need to do it again. I need it in the middle of the pot, really. So there we go, it's in the middle of the pot. And you need to appreciate, because this is a tall plant, it's going to be very insecure for quite some time. So you don't want to go and jog it around once you've planted it up. You need to leave it as it is. So it's in its pot, and this plant looks absolutely fabulous. I think the proportion's fine with the size of the pot and the way the plant looks. I'm expecting this to do really, really well, and it will grow out its roots. I'm going to carry it and show you close up to the camera just for the purposes of seeing what the style looks like, and hope it doesn't topple over. So there we go, look at that. A lovely new Crassula Ovata plant produced from one stem on my mother plant, just as quick and easy as that. Now I know this is going to be fine because I have done this literally so many times and produced myself so many plants from my mother plant. It's unbelievable. She is just a really fantastic plant that just keeps on giving. And now I have one more new Crassula Ovata with this lovely star, and I am going to cover the top of this pot actually with white quartz crystal stones that I found round and about where I live. And then this will look absolutely amazing. Or I might just put lacquer balls around the top, we'll see. So that was all I wanted to show you in this video, how quick and easy it is to make yourself cuttings if you have a big, beautiful Crassula Ovata plant that needs to be pruned to keep a wonderful shape. And these, as I said, these baby plants I have down next to me here are just some of my babies that I have. I have many more inside, and last year I had many, many more as well. So this year my plant is not going to be pruned back any more than this, but next year it will probably need a good pruning and we'll start the whole process off again. So all I have to say now is thank you very much once again for watching this video. Please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be coming up, and I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.